Okay, well, I guess now we just wait and see if anybody logs on, right?
We'll figure out how to do that. Great.
Yeah.
Playing with the mouse again.
Tell him no.
Back door.
Guys, did I not say go to the front yard? Go to the front door?
That's what we do. We have to get this.
Huh?
I had to get the ball.
Okay, come here, baby. Nobody's on here yet, so we're good. I meant like open up the, garage door.
We were too scared because how much noise it is.
Oh, okay, that's fine. Go on out, guys. Love y'all. It says I've got a Snapchat from, Cassie's in. Hey, Cassie. Do you have Naya's number? Because I text her and tell her
Oh, wait, yeah.
I can't exactly check my Snapchat right now.
Actually, I think I do.
Hey, Cass. I'm going to wait to see if any more people want to log on before I actually start, just like last time. So, hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. I'm going to try not to talk as long this time, but I'm not going to make any promises. Oh, thank you. I appreciate that. So, I hope everybody liked the last video and it wasn't too long. I'm sorry. I'm not doing a script, so, I'm just kind of talking from the emotion, really. So if I ramble on and make it too long, then I really am sorry. Today, I thought that I needed to step back a little bit because everything was just kind of rushing and flowing out yesterday. I mean, not yesterday, but the last video. So I'm going to try to cover two really important things from the initial course of chemo that I forgot to talk about. And they were both pretty big deals, one in the positive light and one in the negative light, because of course, life needs balance, right? So I guess we'll give it just a few more minutes if that's okay, and or I can go ahead and start. You guys tell me what you'd like me to do, and that's what I will do. If you want me to go ahead and start, just let me know.
I sure do.
I've got Mini Mom in here with me today. She's going to come on one day and talk. Today she's just, she's about to go. She's looking for herself a new apartment. Most of y'all don't know who Mini Mom is, but you'll meet her throughout all of this, definitely. So do y'all want me to go ahead and start? Any opinions? So, okay, I'm just going to dive in. So, I know last time we got up to the surgery, and that's going to be a whole big thing. So, let me step back a little bit and talk about two major things that happened during the first course of chemo. So, the first one is positive. Many of you know my brother Aaron, and you also know my sister-in-law, who is one of the most amazing people on the planet. I don't know how my brother landed her because she's fantastic, and that's Becky. She used to be Becky Bratcher, but now for a long time she's been Becky Glover. So around the time that I first got diagnosed and I was first getting sick with all the chemo, I got a call from Aaron and Becky. Oh, like right off the bat, it starts getting emotional. So I get a call from them. And they said, hey, we're telling nobody about what's going on right now, but we're going to tell you because we know that it's going to bring some happiness. Oh, and it did. So they told me that they were pregnant with my nephew, Ollie. And I was the first person to know. And they called me all the time to give me updates every time she went to the doctor. And I call him my happiness. I don't call him by his name very often when I'm with him. I just call him my happiness because he really gave me something to clutch on to, something to really lift my spirits on really difficult days, because there were plenty of really difficult days. So that part was pretty wonderful to get to be the first and only person to know for a long time. Like I knew before my mom, before Becky's sister, and I'm just like, who I knew first, which makes me really happy. So now that that's covered, because I felt like I talked about my family a lot, but I didn't really mention my brothers, and they're a huge part of my life. They're still two of my closest friends. We're all together all the time, and we talk all the time. So I thought it was really important for me to cover that. I guess next was something that was very hard and very unexpected. Something that my oncologist had never really run into before. So one morning, it was before that surgery, I woke up and I didn't feel right. And I texted Zach, because I kept the phone in the bed with me. And I texted Zach that it felt like I was falling through the bed. That I was actually literally falling through the bed. So he was at work, so he texted me back and he was asking me questions, and I was trying to answer them the best I could. So then he was like, well, call your dad. Because I hadn't talked to anybody yet. I had just woken up. Everybody was, Mason was at school. Zach was at work. And so I called my dad, and I couldn't talk. I couldn't talk. My words were gone. My word finding was gone. And I was terrified. Absolutely terrified. I couldn't say anything. I couldn't stand up. I couldn't do anything on my own. My dad was like, okay, stay on the phone with me. I'm going to get on the office phone, and I'm going to call Zach and tell him that he's got to get home now. And I'll stay on the phone with you, sis. Don't worry. I'm not going to get off the phone with you. I'm going to stay on the phone with you. So my dad just talked to me. And it took Zach about 30 minutes to get home, because he had to reschedule all his patients and everything, which, was fine. He that wasn't a big deal, but, wow, it's just like jump right in with the emotions, isn't it? So, Zach gets home, and he comes into the bedroom, and he says, what's wrong? And, he got on the phone with my dad to let him know he was there, and Dad filled him in on what I had been trying to say. Because it was odd, like, I could text my words, but I couldn't talk my words. I couldn't get anything out, and when I did talk, it was just this stutter, and it was so frustrating, and, like, the more frustrated I got, like, the worse it would get. And so, he called my oncologist, and my oncologist said, go straight to the ER. So we went to the ER, and, I, believe it or not, the doctor was, I think his name's Dr. Nicely, and he's great. I know him very well at this point. So he had me stand up and close my eyes and, do this sort of thing and touch my nose and see if I could keep balance. And I couldn't keep balance, and I kept falling over, and I couldn't talk, and I was getting frustrated, and I was stamping my feet, and I kept like hitting the bed because I couldn't get my words out. I couldn't tell them what I was feeling. So they went and got an MRI, and there was nothing wrong. They couldn't find anything. It was completely normal. So after the MRI, they were like, you're fine. Let's get your levels tested. So they tested my levels, and it turned out that I was severely dehydrated. My potassium levels had plummeted. My, electrolytes were just all over the place. So they had to pump fluids into me, and they had to do it really slow because, my chemos can cause heart issues. I had to get echocardiograms regularly, and I will for a very long time. And they just started a drip, and they ran it, and we were there all night. And the next day, when I got to go home early in the morning, my husband had called my oncologist, and he said, well, you need to bring her in. We need to keep on the fluids because it was really bad. So we need to keep up on the fluids. So my younger cousin, Michaelina, was in Atlanta at Emory at the time, and she drove up and to my oncologist, and they put me in a bed, and they pumped me full of fluids, and just thought that I would be fine. I'd be okay. So after the fluids, they sent me home, and it took a while to get my faculties back. You have no idea what it's like to have a personality like mine and be helpless. To be helpless. I felt like this cancer was taking everything from me after this. It was taking everything. It took my ability to go to work. It took my ability to take care of myself. And now, God, heaven forbid, because if you know me, you know I love to run my mouth. It was taking my ability to talk. It took my ability to have another child, which was the whole point of going to the doctor in the first place. When that happened, I really felt helpless. Absolutely helpless and hopeless. And I just abandoned by everything, really. You know, people call and people, want to help. But I don't like people to help. I don't want people to do things for me. I don't want them to know how sick I am. Because that's not who I am. I'm here to help you. I want to help you. I want to lift you up. I want to make you feel better. I don't want to have to let somebody else help me. So that pretty much covers up to the surgery. So as we talked about with the surgery, I had come out of surgery and I had the cover here. And I was talking about how I had seen my bottom scar where I had been cut open, and I had seen the scar around my belly button. Not scar, excuse me, wound, like where they'd sealed it. And I'd seen it around my belly button, but I had not seen my chest yet. And like I said, I wasn't, there's nothing that really can prepare you for that sort of surgery. So it came time for me to look at what was underneath. And if you have a weak stomach, this may not be something that you want to hear. So I looked under the part that was covering my chest. And as I said, they had done a skin sparing, but not a nipple sparing mastectomy. And they were gone. And in their place was skin from my stomach. And it was about that large on each side where they had taken them. And that's what I was going to have to live with for a while, was that. And of course, Zach was there holding my hand. And never once did he flinch. Never once did he get disgusted. Never once did it bother him. And all I could see was,
No, love you.
I love you. And all I could see was a monster. And, I didn't let that show to everybody at that hospital. I kept a smile on my face and I kept chipper. And Zach would come over when the nurse was there. And now that I had seen the dressing, they kind of took the dressing away. And he would hold my hand when they would come in. And he would tell me, you know, Diana, you're beautiful. You look amazing. And here I am, this bald, you know, swollen, cut up monster is what I felt like. And here is this wonderful man that I don't even come close to deserving, holding my hand the whole time and telling me that I'm beautiful and that he loves me and that's never going to change. So I had one nurse that demanded to keep me, even though she was a charge nurse and my case was demanding because I was happy. And she said most people that get on that floor are not happy, and they're cranky and they're mean and they're yelling and they're, you know, sometimes they throw things. And I was happy and I giggled and I smiled, and I'm telling you, I mean, I was just overjoyed to be alive and that the cancer was out of my body. And, you know, it's one of those moments where Zach is saying, you know, I love you and you're beautiful and you're gorgeous. And the nurse, believe it or not, the nurse, like, teared up, and she was, and we were like, oh my God, what's wrong? Like, what happened? Is there something wrong with me? And, you know, of course she didn't mean to do that. And she said, and this is probably the worst thing I've ever heard. She said that most husbands, after they see their wives go through what I've gone through and have to have the surgery that I have, are typically disgusted by their wives. That was mind-blowing. That you have, for most husbands, having to go through a surgery that will hopefully save your life, hopefully keep the cancer from coming back, and they find their wives disgusting. So basically, those women they're right. There's no other way to put it. They're right when they feel that way, because their husbands treat them that way. And it's absolutely mind-blowing. So at that hospital, I spent 4 days. And it was a good experience. You know, Emory is a very friendly place. It's like, it's crazy. It's like they're all smiling and happy all the time. It's like a prerequisite to work there. So, you know, I come home after surgery, and I am having to go through the recover part. And this is going to get a little graphic, maybe a little gory, maybe more than you're going to want to hear. But I'm going to go ahead and tell everything. So they had me practicing sitting up on my own because it's something that I needed to be able to do. Now, let me remind you that I have been cut open under this arm to remove lymph nodes. I have had my entire chest cut off and rebuilt from my stomach, and I've been cut from hip to hip from the stomach and had my belly button moved. So I was not allowed to stand up straight for months. I actually had to stay bent down if I was going to walk, which I didn't walk much at first because I was just in that much pain. So I went to, we got in the car, which was a feat of its own, and we drove home. So Zach did his best he could, you know, did his best, the best that he could, not to hit bumps and not to jostle me and not to make things hurt. But that was impossible, absolutely impossible. So we get home that first day, and they've gotten the bed set up. My mother was here, her significant other was here, and of course Zach was here, and Mason was here, and this is before we had all the littles. So I'm home and in bed, and my cell phone is nowhere near me, and oh my God, I've got to use the bathroom, and I couldn't yell. I couldn't raise my voice because the movement and pressure was excruciating. So I kept just trying to say, Mom, Mom, or Zach, Zach, and nobody could hear me. So I laid in the bed for about an hour trying my hardest to get somebody to come, and nobody would come, and I was getting desperate. And this is probably one of the most demeaning things that happened this entire time. Finally, Mason heard me, and he got my mom and he got Zach, and he brought them in there because I had to use the bathroom, and they weren't going to be able to get me up in time. I'm sorry, but I'm going to tell everything because bits and pieces aren't going to help anybody, but I'm hoping that everything will. I'm hoping that other people experience these sort of things too, and they'll hear it and they'll understand that it's not just them. I had to put puppy pads underneath me. And I just had to go there. And it was horrible. So cancer just takes everything. It takes your dignity. It's taken a lot of things that made me feminine, made me a woman. Took my hair, took my boobs. It took everything. So life got a little bit easier after all of this for a while. And this is when our story of our babies come in. So after I'm healed from surgery, I was still on something called Herceptin, which was a year-long medication, intravenous medication that I had to take because of the HER2 and because of the estrogen and progesterone positive cancer. I was on the Herceptin. So I went ahead and I decided I wanted to go back to work. Like, I was done. I didn't want to sit at the house anymore. I was done being the sick woman who, everybody had to take care of, because like I said earlier, that is not me at all. Not me. So I wanted to start going back in homes, and I wanted to start, being myself again and get back to it. So, because it's cancer and because it's always packing something for you, my first day back with Babies Can't Wait, I was dehydrated, and so I'm stuttering and sound completely nuts. But I went to work anyway because I was ready to be back at work, and I was ready to keep going. I wasn't going to do this anymore. So I went back to work, and I had a good couple of months. And I went into one house, and the mother was younger, and I was working with the son who had some behavioral things going on. And he had an older sister that was 1 year older, and she would always join us in our little therapy sessions with colors and cars and singing and, all that stuff. And I fell in love with them. I loved them. I became very close with that family. Well, the family had, the kids had actually just been returned from DFACS custody. And the parents were doing well. They were working on getting the kids integrated back. And at the same time, Zach and I had decided that since we couldn't have any more kids, since the chemo had taken that away from us, we were going to become foster parents, and we were going to adopt. So we were starting our foster care classes. Now, when we did foster care classes, they were all over one weekend. It was a long weekend, but it was worth it to have just one weekend. So we went, and, I was growing my hair back. I had my little stubble going on, and it was fun. And I met actually one of my extremely close friends now that way. She was teaching the class, and she also did her home study. And after the home study, her and I stayed close, and her daughter actually calls me Aunt Diana. And so as we're going through this whole process, I lose touch, and I can't find this little boy and this little girl that I had fallen in love with. I couldn't find them anywhere. So I'm calling, and I'm calling, and I'm calling, and finally I get a call from the mother, and she says, Diana, something's happened. We're in the women's shelter. but I don't want you to come see my son here. I said, okay, that's fine. So about a week after that, I get a call from DFACS. We have a child of yours in state's custody, and we know that you need to do therapy. I said, yes, I do need to do therapy. I need to meet this kid. I need to get him. They said, okay, well, we'll call you back. So that night we were at Kumo, which is my favorite Japanese restaurant here in town, and here in Dalton. They've got the best sushi. I love it. It's where Zach would go and get my sushi while I was doing chemo when everything tasted like hot garbage. Sorry, my medications make my mouth dry. Give me just a second. So we were sitting down, and I was just like, Zach, what if they call us and say that they have a sibling group for us? I know we only wanted one child, but would we be willing to take a sibling group if they called us for that? And he said, hon, I think that it would really just matter the circumstances. Like, what were the circumstances of these kids? Who were the kids? And I was like, yeah, I could see that. I could understand that. And the next day, DFACS called me back, and they were like, hey, there's no point in me telling you who these kids are with, because they're going to be moved within the next 10 days, and we're not sure where they're going to be. So we'll give you a call back. I was like, really? I said, okay. So as soon as I got off the phone with her, I called my husband at work, and I was like, hey, I know this is a long shot, and it may not be something that you want to do, but there's a little boy and a little girl in state custody, and the little boy was my student, and if DFACS would agree, even though we're not fully vetted foster parents, can we take them in? And he said, Diana, is it something that feels right to you? And I said, yeah, it does. It feels right to me, and I feel like this is what we need to do. So I called the caseworker, and I said, we want them. And she said, are you serious? I said, absolutely, we want them. We want them in our home. So she was like, amazing, absolutely, we will make it happen. So later that night, I get a call from what's called a CASA, which is a volunteer and that's gone through training that is assigned by the court to a child. It's a type of child advocacy. So she calls me, she says, hey, I've talked to the other foster parents, we'll do the switch tonight. You're welcome to have them. We're so excited. And I said, oh, well, Zach and I are excited. We've been bustling around the house, getting things ready, getting bedrooms ready, getting things put together. So we were excited. Well, their foster mother, decided that she had some say in this. And she didn't want us having the kids until she had met us and refused to bring them. I don't know if you guys are foster parents on here, because I'm not sure who's on here listening, or if you've been through the foster care system. But as foster parents, we have zip-o rights. We don't get to say, oh no, you can't take them out of my home and put them somewhere else unless I meet them first. Well, she thought she had. She thought she got that. So, yeah, it is tough, but it's amazing at the same time, Lindsay. So, the next day, the CASA called me, and she was like, they're meeting you at Chick-fil-A. I told them that if they do not bring those kids, we will be calling the cops, and they will be in serious trouble because they are no longer in their home. So I get to Chick-fil-A, and there they are. And the little boy is so overjoyed that he sees me. And he crawls in my lap, and he just buries his face. And his sister, who is a very strong-willed, doesn't want to go. And I can understand that, You just got ripped away from your parents. Even though it was a bad situation, when that's what you know, that's what you know. You know chaos, and your comfort is chaos. And so I got down, and I said, why don't we go make some Minnie Mouse stuff? Do you want to go make some Minnie Mouse ears? And I said, well, so let's go to the house, and we're going to make some Minnie Mouse ears. So she said, okay. So I brought them home, Mason was here, and it was time for our first night with them. First day, really. And let me tell you, it was quite a day. So, the foster mother had said that they had some violent tendencies. And so, I get that. I understand that. It's something that I've worked with my whole life. My whole life has been dedicated to behavior and children with special needs. Behavior is kind of where my heart goes. So I was like, okay, we're ready for this. And I knew that my husband was a strong partner, and I knew that we could pull these kids through this. So it's our first day, and they're playing, and they're having a good time, and they're enjoying it. And I step out of the room. And within seconds of me stepping out of the room, the sister had grabbed the much, much smaller, emaciated younger brother by the head, shook him, and literally threw him out of the bedroom. And I was gobsmacked. I've dealt with this in schools before. I've been beaten black and blue, literally. I've had my nose busted, my eyes black, my lips busted. Because, man, I love those behavior babies. But I've never been in the situation where it was in my home that this was happening. So, of course, I separated them. I gave my attention to the little boy, made sure he was okay, hugs and loves, got him through it. Then I sat and talked with the sister, and we discussed what she did and why it wasn't okay. And she didn't get it. She said, I wanted him out of my room. And I said, okay. She was 3, so she didn't state it that well, but she was 3, almost 4. She was going to be 4 the next month. And he was 2. I'm going to be 3 in October, which was like 2 months away. But he was a tiny 3. One of the things that I was working on with him was eating, because he wouldn't eat. He'd pack the food in the roof of his mouth, and then he would hold it, and he would go to bed, and he would choke and vomit. And eating for them was this huge, huge issue. So here we are. We've got this teeny tiny emaciated 2-year-old with his much larger 3-year-old sister who thinks she can use him as a punching bag. And he starts screaming after I thought I had gotten him calm. And by screaming, I mean blood-curdling, heart-wrenching screaming. So I've got the sister in the bedroom being obstinate, not caring. I wanted it out of my room, so that's what I was going to do. And then I've got this beautiful, teeny, tiny little boy screaming. So I start focusing my attention on him. And what he does next was, explained the scars on his face. He took his hands before I could get to him, and he clawed all the way down his face and literally was drawing blood and taking the skin off. And I got to him, and I got his hands before he could do it again. I didn't grab his wrist. You actually grab the hands and bring them down that way. And I picked him up and was rocking him and trying to calm him. And he was fighting me and squirming and got on the floor. And when he got on the floor, he starts pounding his head. So I got him, I'm sitting on the floor because you don't ever pick up and carry a child like that. And I've got him in my arms, and he is just fighting in little, piranha bites up and down my arms and smashing his head into my chest and kicking and flailing. And his sister is about 5 feet away playing with toys like nothing happened or nothing is happening. And I think that's really the first time that it drives home to you as a brand new foster parent that chaos is their norm. You see it at school, but it's such a different situation because you're a teacher and they act differently to you because you're a teacher. When they're put into our homes, we become, hey Tina, we become mom. So this little boy that I was teaching in home, who was this brilliant and sweet little boy, when the label of teacher was over my head, when he crossed my threshold and I became mom, he was a different child. He was violent. He was screaming. And he hurt himself a lot. So I finally got him calmed, and I let him go play, and it was time for dinner. And so I made everybody plates, and we sat down for dinner. And we always, we sit together, we eat, and not really thinking about it. I should have made, an easy dinner, something that everybody would have liked, like fried chicken, mashed potatoes, macaroni and cheese. Like, no kid ever turns that down, let's be real. But that's not what I did. That's not what I did. And I had made fish that night with, garlic potatoes and carrots. And it's a rule in my house. You eat what you're given for dinner. I'm not going to give you anything else. This is what you're getting. My 3 older boys know that. If you don't want to eat it, you're welcome to go to bed, and you can try again in the morning. I'm not going to force feed you. So I had to stick to those guns, because when you're bringing a child into your home and you start breaking the rules for them, that's really hard on your biological children. Well, why are you breaking the rules for this child? Well, why can't I break those rules too? Well, why do I have to do this if they're not doing this? And I didn't want to create that sort of situation. So I sat with them while they ate, and the little sister, the older sister, she'd eat, she'd spit it out. I'd say, you can't do that, you've got to eat. Little brother wouldn't open his mouth. Right? So finally I coax him into opening his mouth. He puts the food in his mouth, and he's chewing. So I think that he's swallowing, right? And he's, so I'd give him another bite, and he'd chew, and I'd think that he's getting the food in, and he'd chew, and little sister's sister's over there finally munching away, because Mason's, tickling, and Mason, first off, was born to be a big brother. Like, that's that's just what he was born to do. And I'm sitting here thinking that the 2-year-old is eating. He's not. At a point, I start to realize that there's no more room. There's nothing here. There's nothing here. It's all packed. He has a very high palate up here. And he has packed it tight with his tongue. And this is super dangerous. He very easily could choke. He very easily could, aspirate, which is taking a foreign object into his lungs, whether it's fluid or something solid, which could lead to bukus of issues. So I knew that I was going to have to get this food moved off of his palate. And the only really way to do that without causing any sort of injury is by using your finger. And it's not something you want to do ever. You don't ever want to stick your finger into a child with any sort of issues mouth. But I will take damage. I will take the pain, physical and emotional, before I ever let a child be hurt. So here we go. I take a deep breath. I do a release on his chin. I stick my finger in his mouth, and just like I thought, he clamped down on my finger with his teeth right here. And then I had to sweep my finger across his palate while he ground my finger with his teeth. And then I would take the food and I would pack it over here. And he'd try to sweep it back up, and I'd pack it over there. And I'd sweep it back up, and he'd pack it over, I'd put it back over there. And this entire time, he's clasping on to my knuckle. And this went on for probably, God, 4 or 5 months before he would eat regularly. It would be sessions of me and him sitting and him grinding my knuckle to the bone almost. And, Zach would do it if he was home. But, with Zach working all day, I didn't really want him to do that. And, I was back at Babies Can't Wait. And so to older sister and eating. We soon found out why she was so much bigger than he was. If you walked out of the room or turned your back, she would take his plate and sweep all of his food onto his plate, and she would eat it. So even if he enjoyed something, she would take it and she would eat it all. And that baby was so browbeaten that he wouldn't say anything. He would just sit there, and we would say, "Baby, did you eat?" And he would, and no word, just like that. And we'd be like, "Okay," until we caught her. 3 months they had to eat in separate rooms before we could break that habit. 3 months. So we're starting to really see some change in the kids. The little boy, we knew was going to be a long road. We knew he would. The little girl was coming miles and miles. She was just growing and growing and changing in so many positive ways. And I woke up one morning with severe back pain. And even though that's what my husband specializes in, because I'm stubborn, I didn't say anything. And I would go to work, and I was sitting on floors and getting up and picking up kids and carrying my giant therapy bag and in and out of the car, and it's excruciating. And I did this probably for about a month. So at home, I am trying to change the behavior of 2 very strong-willed, very severe behavior children that with violent tendencies, and trying to potty train a child who would be so angry to potty train that he would lift himself up and slam down on the toilet seat so hard that he would put bruises in circles around his legs in the shape of the toilet seat. And then I'm going to work, and because I love behavior kids, that's who I was typically put with the children that had behavioral needs, parents that needed behavioral training. So at home, I've got my son, my husband, my 2 new children, both strong behavior kids, and at work, I'm working with behavior kids. So finally, my back gets bad enough that I can't hide it from my husband anymore because I can't walk at all. Every pain is excruciating, and I'm still going to work. Parents are having to lift me off the ground. So finally, Zach was like, "Look, this is ridiculous. Like he does every time with everything. You're being ridiculous. You're going to come to the office. We're just going to get an MRI and we'll see what it is." So I said, okay. So I get to his office, barely able to walk, wouldn't let anybody help me because I'm a stubborn ass. And I walk down the hall and I sit down, and at this point the pain is like going down my legs, and I'm, losing some sensation in my toes, and it's horrible. So they did the MRI, and the next day after the MRI, Zach said, "If you're home, stay home. You are not allowed to lift anything over a milk jug." And I was like, oh my God, what is going on? He said, "I'll be home in a little, I'll be home tonight. We'll talk about it. These are your restrictions. Don't do anything more than that. Get in the bed." I'm like, okay, well, that's real doable with, a now 3 and 4-year-old who are getting better, but still quite issued. So he gets home and he has my x-ray and my MRI, and I actually have a severely herniated disc. And because my body sucks and hates me, it didn't bulge out like any normal human. It bulged up and was tangled into the nerves above, inside my spinal column. Right? Yeah. So, perfect. So, Zach says, honey, I'd love to let you sit around and let's pretend that it's going to heal on its own, but it's not. You have to have spinal surgery. Yeah, so, okay. I've beaten cancer. I've had my boobs cut off and rebuilt. Now they're going to have to cut into my spine. And I'm going to be bedbound for a month. The only time I was allowed to sit up was on the toilet to pee. Yeah. So, at this point, I'm still trying to feel not sorry for myself. It's really hard that I keep telling myself everybody has it different in life. Everything could be worse. So I have the surgery. I'm bedbound for a month. And Presley Whitfield, who is Minnie Mom, I was addressing her earlier, and her mother were picking up my kids and bringing them home. And Presley would stay with me. She's 21 now, so she had to be maybe 17 then. And she was staying with me. And Mason was helping a lot just to try to get us through. So I healed, and it was time to take out my staples. I didn't feel like going to the office to get the staples removed. I thought that was stupid. Like, we'll just let Zach do it. Yeah. So my 3 boys are like, oh, Mom, we want to watch you get your staples taken out. So I was like, okay, that's fine. Y'all come in the bedroom. So, we lay out like a sterile area, and Zach's scrubbing my back down, and he's got his little things, right? Okay, I did explain that my body hates me. I don't know what I did to it. I really don't. But it has an undeniable, really strong hatred for me. So he has these things, and they kind of look like scissors, and what they do is staples are staples. Like, they're literally staples down my back. So he takes these scissors, and he's back there. He's like, honey, this isn't going to be bad. And he sprays it with this, it's like a cold spray, lidocaine. It's supposed to numb the area. But that stuff doesn't work on me because I had it for my port, and I didn't even try anymore because it just doesn't work, right? So the really bad word staples wouldn't come out. Some of them did. And mind you, I am trying not to lose it with pain because I've got my 3 boys in there watching this. And, it is my job as a mom to show them that you have to have strength and stability through crap. Because you're going to be met with so much crap in your life that if you can't show strength, you've lost the battle. It was horrible. I mean, I literally thought there were 2 or 3 that were not going to come out. It was excruciating, and he is crimping and pulling and crimping and pulling and trying to get him out. And Zach is the most tender, wonderful person ever. When they had to pull my drains, they pulled one at the office, and then they said that Zach could pull the rest of them. When that woman pulled my drain, it was like hot coals and glass and lemon juice being scraped through my chest. When Zach pulled the other 3 drains from here and 2 at my hips, I didn't even feel them. This man's magic, okay? But with these freaking staples, I swear to God, I thought Satan was standing behind me and going at my back. It was horrible. So he took the staples out, and I was allowed to get up and walk around. I was fine. I didn't really have any restrictions anymore because it had been a month in the bed. And I'd say that was like a Thursday. Saturday of that week, we get a phone call from our RD worker who also does all the placements. And she says, hey guys. And we're like, oh, okay, well, she's going to ask us something. She was like, how would you guys feel about taking an 18-month-old in a full body cast? Yeah, 18-month-old in a full body cast. I had just had back surgery. But how do you say no? How do you say no? Well, a lot of people had. Everybody wanted her baby sister who was only 3 months old, but nobody wanted to deal with an 18-month-old in a spica cast. And I don't know if you guys know what that is, but it is a cast for a broken femur or a hip or something like that, where the cast comes up here on the child and wraps around under their arms, or adult. It just depends who needs it. And then it ran all the way down her broken leg and then halfway down her other leg. And then it like cast her spread open, and then inside of her, in the middle of her legs where the diaper would go, is cut open. Well, yeah. So I've seen spica cast. I've worked with children with spica cast, but I have never had 24 hours a day with a child in a spica cast. So what do? I start my research, and I'm researching and I'm researching and I'm compiling all these things, and I'm getting things ordered for her because we said, yes, of course we're going to take her. So we get a call a couple hours later, and our RD worker said, okay, you guys need to head to the hospital. You might want to get to know her. And Mason said, well, I want to go buy her something because I want to be the first person that she falls in love with. And I said, okay, Mason, but you need to remember, this is a foster child. This is not a child that's at legal risk like our other two were. That's why they were placed with us, because we were already in the process of, going through the, knowing that we were going to adopt the other two. So we get to the hospital, and Mason spotted her this really cute rabbit because we were getting them in April, and we went in there, and the doctors were like, okay, she's super shy. Nobody can get her to eat. Her dinner is in there. So I said, okay, and I got in there, and I leaned over the bed, and I introduced myself, and I introduced Mason, and there was a caseworker there, and in the corner was like this little infant in a thing. Well, she wasn't a little infant, she was a little pudgy budgy infant. We didn't know who she was, but the caseworker was like, now that y'all are here, I'm gonna leave. So Zach, Mason and I sat there with her and loved on her, and Zach came up for a little bit and visited with her because it was a Saturday, but he was back home with the other two kids. And I remember Zach walked in and saw her. And she was this teeny tiny, beautiful little girl. With black hair about to here, 18 months old, and had the largest look into your soul and hook you in eyes that I've ever seen. And Zach looked at me and said, I'm never letting her go. He said, I promise you, she's going to be my daughter. So, we were time to take her home, and it was nighttime. And they said, okay, she's checking out. The nurses came in. They went through everything that I needed with her. They sent us home with diapers. She had to have 2 different size diapers. But I was like, yeah, okay, I'll do the small ones on the inside. And then I bought some cloth diapers to go around the outside, because you have to do an inner diaper and an outer diaper in a child with a spica cast. So to get her home, she didn't really fit in a car seat yet. I figured out how to fit her in one, but we had to be escorted out by sheriff's deputies. This was the situation that this child had come from. So they escorted us out. They helped us get her buckled in, and she laid down in the back with her head on Mason's lap with a pillow, and her little bunny clutched to her. And the sheriffs got in on the other side and buckled her in for us, and we were off. And the sheriffs followed us home for a little while to make sure nobody was following us, and we were home. And, we introduced her to the other 2 kids, and she just became a part of our lives. We had the room that we're in now, we had completely deconstructed from my craft room to her nursery. And we embarked on how to take care of her. So that Monday is what's called the 72-hour hearing. So when you get a foster child and they're taken from their parents and put in your home, there's a hearing 72 hours after they're put in your home. So I said, okay, I'll take her. And I'd gotten down one of, my neighbor had given me a stroller, and it was one of the big ones, so that she could fit in it. So I'd already at this point figured out, I had gotten like a bigger car seat, they're not like the expensive ones, and I had rolled up towels behind her to support her back, and then I was able to strap her in, because there was no way that I was going to strap this teeny tiny, beautiful little girl with how the sheriffs had showed me. It just wasn't going to happen, wasn't safe enough for me. So we get to the courthouse, and lo and behold, there is that pudgy, cute, wide-eyed, blonde hair, blue-eyed infant. And it was her sister. And they could not have looked more different. The little girl in the body cast looks Hispanic, because she is. Beautiful dark skin, large brown eyes, jet black hair. And when she laid eyes on her baby sister, it was pure joy. It was the first time I saw her be really happy. So, of course, first thing I did was call Zach, and I said, hey, look, we've already decided I'm not going back to work because of, we've got the little girl in the cast. Her little sister is here, and she's 3 months old. What do you say? And he said, bring her home. So the caseworker called our RD worker, and they got special permission, and she came home with us that day. And none of them have left. None of them have left. Those are our 4 babies. And they're amazing. They're amazing. So this is when Mini Mom got super involved. Because I called her and I said, hey, how do you feel about coming and babysitting? I've got to go do this. I've got to go do that. I've got places I need to be today, and I cannot lug the kids around the whole time. She was like, yeah, sure, great. I'll come over. She didn't tell me that she'd never changed a diaper before, that she'd never really babysat an infant. She didn't know how to make a bottle or anything. I did show her how to change a child in a spica cast. And she did not, she didn't tell me that she'd never done any of these things before. So I left, think everything's fine. I get home, and she was like, I had to call my mom. I forgot how you told me to make a bottle. I didn't know how to do this. The baby was crying, and this one was upset in the spica cast, and then the other, like all these things were going on at one time, right? Thank goodness the other 2 were in daycare. So that was kind of her true break into our family. And she's never left us. She's been with us from that moment on, from that first day babysitting, thick and thin. Those kids are probably just as much hers as they are ours. So, there's so many ups and downs with foster care. You're drugged through so much. Are the kids going home? Are they staying? What about visitations? What about phone calls? You're just biting your nails and you're just nauseated. So it turned out that finally our 2 older ones were free and clear. They had been TPR'd, which is termination of parental rights. So we were like, yes, okay, they're our babies. They're ours finally. And then we go on vacation. And we're at the beach. And the lump that I had been talking to my oncologist about, that he was so sure was nothing more than scar tissue. It started to itch. And I called my oncologist, and he was just still so sure. Because, I mean, I had thrown everything at my cancer. I mentioned my body hates me, right? He said, I'm going to send you to your plastic surgeon. He did fat grafting. It's probably nothing more than that. He'll probably need to break it up with a needle. So my plastic surgeon walks in. He gets a feel of it. At this point, it's big enough that my neighbor could see it from her yard. He said, Diane, I'll be right back. He stepped out. I heard him make a call on his cell phone. He stepped back in, and he said, Doc, I'm so sorry. You've got to go to Dr. Manahan's right now and get a biopsy. I'm sorry, sweetheart, but I think your cancer's back. So here I am, thinking that I'm living the dream. I've got my 7 kids. And I wake back up in that nightmare. I went back to Dr. Manahan, and he took several different plugs out of the tumor because he knew we were going to need to get better testing this time and learn a little bit more about my cancer this time. And I told him I think it's time for me to get a new oncologist. And then my whole family was in agreement. I loved that oncologist. I loved him. But he wouldn't listen. And it had grown to the point that it was about the size of a golf ball. In 4 months, I only got to be in true remission for 4 months before I had a tumor the size of a golf ball in my left breast again. I thought that I was living the dream, but I ended up waking right back up in that nightmare. And I didn't know what to do, how to react. sat down with my husband and I said, I'm scared this one will kill me. I'm scared this is it. For it to come back so quickly and so aggressively. I thought that was it. I think that's where I'm going to stop tonight. There's a whole lot more, but I think I need to stop there. I love all you guys, and I appreciate you joining me again. I hope that this one was a little bit more upbeat. Trust me, I'm going to tell you a lot more about my kiddos, because there's a lot to tell, and there's a lot more people to introduce this time around in the cancer. I had some really wonderful people come into my life this time, and I was a little bit more open about what was going on this time. So I appreciate it, guys. And if you feel like somebody would benefit from my story, you're welcome to share it. I'm also putting it up on my YouTube page, which is Miss Anthrope, which is MS-ANTHROPE. I'm doing this to heal myself, but if it could help anybody else, that's what I want it to do too. If you have anybody going through it that would like to message me, because sometimes other cancer patients just need to talk to cancer patients, that's what I could do. But like I said, I love you guys, and good night.